is this what you want to do after breakfast? And if the answer is yes, then this is your project.
Thank you, Jamie Catto, for coming on and being actually the first person that we're talking to in this kind of a podcasty idea that me and Tony are working on. My working title for this is Meetings with Mates, Mentors and Masters. So it's great you could come onto this because you meet all of those three categories for me. So really good to have you here. The background where the idea of this came from is we're working on a film, as you know, called I Am John. And repeatedly, we keep kind of coming back to the creative process in a way and hitting up against it sometimes, and sometimes it being feeling really fluid. And so we thought we'd open up the process really and start talking to people as we go through the process. Rather than these things that sort of say, this is how we did it afterwards, because we don't know how we're going to do it. And that was the other reason that I wanted to get you on, because I'd done your course, as well as knowing you well. I'd done your course, a couple of them, a few years ago. And if anyone's watching this, I highly recommend that you get onto one of them. And the bit that really stuck out for me was the stuff around creativity, and particularly the part around kind of being in process, and also a willingness to give yourself permission to sort of green light your own projects. So that's why I wanted to reach out to you really and speak to you a little bit around that.
Great. Oh, I've got a lot to say about it. In fact, I'm running that same creativity workshop on Saturday weeks, 17th of October. Maybe this will be out before then. Two big things. One is that whenever we do anything, the attitude with which we do it has a really, really big effect on the fruits. And that is like the first, where we move from, has such a large effect that I always start from that point. For example, in our culture, we are taught to value when something's done well or been valuable is usually based on how much positive feedback did we get, how much money did it make, how many people came. And if it met those kind of criteria really well, we feel we made a success of something. And if it didn't meet that criteria really well, we think it was a failure. And that, to start with, is a dodgy criteria. Because people have got such low self-esteem and such money worry and such a perverted idea of what success means, that the true way to do a project is like bringing up a child. It's an act of devotion. The child isn't there to get you something. You're there to give to the child. And when you do your parenting that way, you are in a state of devotion. You're in a state of listening and observing and seeing how you can give, and you respond. And then, you know, the old school way of being parented, how we three were probably parented, was much more yang, much more deliberate. I'm going to make the child like this. You impose your will, molding the child. But how we're doing it, I hope, is instead of doing that to the child, we're doing this. We're listening to the child, and then we're creating the perfect environment around it for it to expand into whatever tomato plant it's going to be. Very, very different attitude. Yeah. And it's the same with the project. Is like, a project is an opportunity to be devotional, right, to make something that's going to be of benefit to other people, to make something that's going to inspire other people, that's going to create connectivity with other people. And when we act on it devotionally like that, suddenly the original criteria of how well did it do, how many people came, how much money did it make, become much less important. And the values like how much fun did we have with each other making it, how much did we learn, how much did it vibrate with a good vibe so that everyone who came across it had a, you know, and then that's not really about the numbers, that's about the quality. So that's the most important thing. What people tend to do is, like, if you imagine that your project is like a thoroughbred horse, you're there to groom it every night, give it the best oats. You know, our job is to like make that horse as great as it can be. But what people tend to do with the old school view of value is they saddle that horse like a donkey to carry their self-esteem issues up the hill, or carry their money worries up the hill. And the horse isn't there to get you peace of mind around those things. And so where we move from, as I said, is so important. And so the attitude you do it with, I always ask the question when you're doing a project, and I know the answer is already a yes for you guys with this, is like, with your new project, is if God said all your life expenses are already paid, that's all done, is this what you want to do after breakfast? And if the answer is yes, then this is your project. Because like when we did One Giant Leap, which turned out to be quite a big project, we were so into it, we would have done it for $5,000. You know, like, we weren't doing it for the millions. We were doing it because, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to do, blah, blah, blah. You know, it was like that. You know, when you were young and you were making a go-kart in your back garden out of a broken pram, and your mates would like pop their head over the fence and jump and join you. It wasn't really about whether this go-kart was going to win any races or was going to be seen by the neighborhood as the greatest go-kart. It was just the doing of it together, the collaboration, the fun of put that there. Wow, that's cool. You know, like, it was just that enthusiasm. Yeah. And that's the attitude that makes the success.
It's really interesting you're saying that, because one of the things that, like, I come up against, and like I come across it in my creativity, and I know I've come across it because it's a sort of wound of mine, which I have to revisit again and again and again, it would seem, before I overcome it, is the one of like permission. And that's what I really got when I came to your workshop, was the thing around why are you waiting for someone else to give you permission for a project? And I feel that, like, in the creative industry now, you know, in lots of areas of life, there's almost like this thing of, well, if so-and-so says it's good enough, or if so-and-so puts up enough money, or if so-and-so gives it a distribution deal, then we can do it. And what I really liked about where you come from, and what I like about where you come from, is that you say, well, why don't you just be the person who says do it, and give yourself the permission, and then get the process going.
We're doing it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it
and
anyway.
That's a really good, important note on a practical level for meetings, because you'll be going into meetings where someone will be maybe giving you their resources or some money or something. If you go in with the attitude of, can you please give us this money so we can do it, then all the pressure and power is on them. That something rests on their shoulders, whether this is going to get done or not. But if you go in with an attitude that says, we're doing this, would you like to join in? The thing is being done, whether they're joining in or not. Yeah. No pressure for them, you know, like, and also no power struggle for them that they suddenly now can negotiate and like have power over. The other thing about that is, and this is probably the opposite of what they'll teach you at Harvard Business School, is never treat someone like you like them more than you really do in order to get stuff from them. Never schmooze. Okay. If you wouldn't have them in your treehouse, don't have them on your project. Don't take their money.
No matter what they're bringing.
Hey?
No matter what they're bringing?
No, because otherwise you're prostituting them. Because if they knew you didn't really like them or value them, they wouldn't give you the money.
Yeah.
So you're kind of conning them. And if you con them, then you're making a message to the universe that says, because by your actions, the universe treats you, not wanting to be too woo-woo about it. But when I manipulate or be fake in order to get something, I'm saying to God or to the universe, I'm saying I need to be manipulative and fake in order to get success. And then what happens is the world gives you more experiences of needing to be fake and manipulative to do well, because it said, oh, that's this guy's rules. Let's give him more of that. You've said yes to fakeness and manipulation as the route. So now you find yourself in a position where you need to be fake and manipulative because you set the rules. Yeah. So when you treat people really respectfully and like inclusively, if you like them, or you vibe with them, or you don't like them that much, but you think that being in your field is going to help them, if you're still coming from a generous, positive place, then the universe hears, this one's all about creating a generous, positive field. Let's send in more generous and positive people. You set the agenda by your actions.
Yes. And so one of the sort of that thing about how you go out into the world, you know, that, which is what I'm taking from Don't Be Manipulative. It's one of the things that we come across, and we realized that we were hitting against it really hard, was this idea of perfection. We ended up having loads of meetings where we were going, if we can get this bit right and then this bit right, then we can kind of go out. And that was affecting our social media. That was and we just weren't moving really. And this is where kind of this came from, was this idea of like, why ain't we including more people in the process? Why ain't we willing to show, do you know what, like this, we don't even know what we're doing next week with this project. We're just kind of doing it.
I like what you're doing now, which is much more humble, you know, and I don't mean humble in a naff way. You know, it's much when you're a beginner but you're passionate, everyone wants to help. We have been so brainwashed by this old view of success and value. So, you know, at school, when you did it brilliantly, you got a cup or a gold star. When you did it averagely, you got ignored. And when you did it badly, you got shamed. So because we're all working from that imaginary model that we only get love when we generate it, we only get help, we only get attention when we're brilliant, everyone is so terrified of being seen to be anything other than brilliant that they edit stuff far too quickly, and they don't let the thing flow through, and they don't let anything but what they think is totally safe and totally great to be seen, which is a stupid thing to do, because you'll never get there, especially in your own view, and you'll never put anything out. People are they're editing it before it's come through. They're pruning the bush before it's budded fruit.
Yeah.
So if you really look at the world and successful people, from Jimi Hendrix to John Lennon or whatever, they put out a lot of dodgy album tracks. They weren't not every single thing they put out was Imagine or Hey Jude by any stretch of the imagination. You know, half of the tracks on John Lennon albums are all right, and half of them are really good, and one of them is incredible. But if you don't allow mediocrity to come through, then you're never going to get the gold. And no one's ever going to see anything. If you think that all 12 album tracks are going to be number ones, no one's ever going to hear your music.
It's funny because, like, this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but I'm a huge Prince fan, right? And now, since he died, unfortunately, they're kind of sticking out everything that he ever done. And one of the things that resurfaced the other day was the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, which is one of my favourite Prince tracks. And he done a version of it where they had the saxophone on it, and it really don't sound very good. And there's all this kind of conversation at the moment about, thank God he never released it like that. And there's a part of me that thinks, but he never intended to. He just put that on as a track and thought it didn't work and took it off. Why is there this big deal about this undiscovered bit of imperfection in Prince, that one of his songs might have not sounded perfect?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And I find that, rather than just, well, thank God he tried so much stuff and then decided that the saxophone didn't work. And
that's the point, is you guys can keep toying with lots of different ideas, some which will work more than others. And then once you've let the good stuff, the mediocre stuff, the shit stuff all come through, then you can decide with a bit of feedback from your inner circle and other people, this is working. I didn't really like that bit, but everyone's saying they're loving it. We'll include that. You know, like you just sort of, you get a vague consensus and then you put it out. So you don't need to worry about mediocre stuff coming through, because the general public don't need to see it until you're satisfied. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, allow your net to be quite wide on the different things you experiment with. People are much less concerned about, Lawrence did something not quite brilliant, let's shame him. You know, no one gives a fuck. They're all looking at their phone, and everyone's on their own thing. No one expects everyone else to be brilliant or they're ignored. You know, some stuff works better than other stuff. The point is to be productive and just to keep doing stuff and keep making stuff and keep trying stuff out. And then the good will out. You know, when I did One Giant Leap, the second one particularly, which was, they were both successful in different ways. Like the first one was more commercially successful, nominated for the Grammys, hundreds of thousands sold. The second one had release problems, so it wasn't commercially so successful, but was much more cult. Like everyone knows the movie What About Me, or who knows One Giant Leap.
Yeah.
The whole amount of content of the making of and the movie and everything, you know, it's about 3 or 4 hours of content if you mushed it all together. We shot 1,000 hours. So, you know, cast your net wide, because you never know what suddenly turns into genius accidentally. It's always the actual accidental moments that are the genius moments.
Yeah.
Very few of the deliberate moments. I can tell you so many stories where the thing we thought was going to be the big hit and on Radio 1 and everyone was going to love, everyone ignored. And the thing that nobody was really concentrating on was top 10, and we were on top of the pops with the Spice Girls. You know, happened over and over and over again. What, you know, your view on what's good is important, but your view on what's going to be successful, nobody knows. You're throwing a million-sided dice every time you do everything. You know, the point is to keep it soulful and keep it sincere. You know, sincerity is the greatest quality. When people see your stuff, they're not interested in the data and on the content. They're interested in the aliveness. They're interested in seeing two guys who are alive with this and passionate. Whether they're talking total sense about Iron John hiding the key under his mother's pillow, or whether they're the wild man or whatever, they might be interested in that. But it's going to be your passionate being into itness coming through that is what keeps people watching.
In your career, you've had several times where you've had huge successes in the tour, in a sort of classic sense, and lots of people came, lots of people spent on it, and you got kind of publicly. How easy do you find now when you're approaching a new project to be able to sort of park that expectation? Because obviously you felt that on a big scale. So do you find it easy to park that and
I never think about it.
Kind of,
I never think about it.
Is this a benefit for the world?
Yeah, I never think about it.
Wow.
I know how unlikely it is that it's going to be commercially successful. I know that it's almost definitely not going to be commercially successful whenever I start anything. So I don't ever imagine that it will be. The recent one that did really well was a movie I made as a tribute to Ram Dass, which is called Becoming Nobody. It's this movie, which has done really well. But my mission for that was, I love Ram Dass. I want to make the definitive movie so that anyone else that might be interested in him can come and discover this film and get the beautiful, hilarious, unpretentious hit of him. And that was my mission. It's up to God whether it ends up in the cinemas or ends up going straight to DVD. It's up to God. You know, it's such a mystery of how many people see it, whether they liked it, whether they told someone else they liked it, whether so-and-so picked it up, whether they watched it on the... I mean, like, you can't control the trajectory of... Like, I always use this example of when I was in Faithless, we had these two backing vocalists, these two girls, both great. One of them was like incredibly talented as a lyricist, as a singer. Everyone wanted her to sing the backing on all their albums. She was amazing. She was like Tracy Chapman meets, I don't know, you know, she was just fucking brilliant. And she was obviously going to be a massive world star. She was called Pauline Taylor. And for all her talent, you've probably never heard of her.
No.
The other backing vocalist, she was all right. She wasn't the greatest singer. She didn't have great range. She wrote some songs. They were okay. She didn't seem to really enjoy being on the road, to be honest. She didn't really like being on the tour bus. It didn't seem to be for her. Everyone kind of felt she'd go back to her publishing job afterwards. She's called Dido. She sold 16 million albums twice. You can't, you roll the dice. It's such a mystery. like what, the success part of it. You just got to not concern yourself. Obviously you do everything you can to make it as successful as possible, but you don't make that the factor on whether it was worth doing or not. So it's what we say is like, we turn our addictions into preferences. So we're saying like, I'm here. If I'm addicted, which most people are, I say, if it does really well, I'm here. If it doesn't do really well, I'm here. But what we do with turning addictions into preferences, we say, look, I'm here with anything we want. If I get it, I'll be here. But if I don't, I'm still here. Like, for instance, I wrote this book that was moderately successful called Insanely Gifted, which was like my model of how I think everyone should live their life, my bossy book. And of course, I wanted it to become the next Power of Now, because I want it to be so massive that I can buy a place in Corfu, sit on my arse in a hammock, and then whenever I want to do a retreat, everyone comes to me. I don't have to go anywhere, and it all just like revolves around me. That's what I wanted, right? And I'll get there eventually. It didn't do that well, that it made me so famous that everyone will come to wherever I am. But more than one person, since I released that book, came up to me and said, I was going to kill myself. And for some reason, your book came into my hands, and it has a funny cover, and I was just a bit curious about it. So I just started reading it, and it really inspired me. And obviously, I decided not to kill myself, and I want to teach your work. Are you taking any students? Now, that's huge impact. What would you rather?
Yeah.
Your book reach 1 million people or stop someone from killing themselves? Secretly, I'd still rather have the 1 million. But seriously, like, you don't know the impact of your fruit with your movie that you're doing. It's not about how many people see it. It's about how deeply does it penetrate the few people that see it, or however many people see it. It's better to hit deep than hit wide. It'd be better to change 1,000 people's lives than to reach 1 million people who all saw it and thought it was all right and then said, where should we have dinner, pizza or pasta? And then they're gone. I would rather go deep than go wide. Because if you go deep, everyone will remember that depth, and they will always show up for your next thing, and it will grow. So, you make it as authentic and as menschy and as like you guys are. You guys are very, very like real, authentically kind of like, that's what it's about. That's the great commodity on the planet at the moment, is authenticity, passion, showing up, being sometimes vulnerable, allowing yourself to be seen, not always in the lovely groomed Instagram superficial way. That's the great commodity. People are, the world has become so superficial with the media, with Instagram, with social media. Everything is groomed, has got a filter on it, has got like only editing out the good bit, only editing in the good bits. We need mess. We need bacteria in the soil. You know what I mean? We need so bringing that realness and that passion and that menschiness, it gives everyone permission for them to be real and take a big, deep sigh of relief that they don't have to be this kind of superficial, groomed version of themselves, the appropriate shop window, which is what everyone's kind of being funneled into at the moment. It's nice to be a bit messy.
Difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. It's very difficult at the moment because it seems so counterintuitive to kind of go, here I am, warts and all, because even our, we're being told to work on our personal brands and all that stuff kind of all the time. Like, you're always being watched, you're always being seen. And I like what you're saying earlier, but actually kind of, well, we're always visible, but it don't actually always mean we're being watched because most people don't care. But you're right. It's like how the only people I connect with really are the people who go, here I am. Like this is me. Like, I've seen Perfect so many times that kind of I want to see the chinks in people's armor because that's what's most interesting.
Yeah.
So what bits, and you may have touched on it earlier on when you were saying about does it get you out of bed in the morning, but what are the bits that you try to control? What are the indicators for you of it's time to go? This is the one. Do you have like a sort of checklist in a way?
Yeah, just like we know what's good. Do you know what I mean? That you just watch it, you go, oh, I like that. Your own compass of just what you like, and if you're in doubt, you have your inner circle of like 5 or so people who are fresh to it, who aren't really part of it, that you send them it fresh, and you just say, which bits did you love, which bits lost you? And if one person says, I didn't really like this bit or that bit, it doesn't matter. But if 3 people say, you lost me here, you might have thought you were totally clear, but if 3 people didn't get it, you need to look at it again. It's really good to get that feedback. But really, you just got to really, really, really trust your own taste and your own compass. This is your project, no one else's. Trust your own taste, and because at the end of it, it's going to have to be you that's touring it around the place. And if you don't trust your own taste and you cut in something you don't like, then every time you're taking it out there, every time you watch it back, you think, don't like that bit. It'll drive you mad. It's not up to watering it down to satisfy all the people in Cleveland. It's not about doing a lowest common denominator by committee decision. Be a fucking fascist. No great art was made by committee. You end up with a bit of what everyone likes and a sort of soup that no one quite likes. It's better to just be really fucking clear about what you like. I always say great art is collaborative, not democratic. Big difference. You listen to everybody, but you fucking just trust your own taste. And that's what makes a great producer. Like the reason why I'm quite good in that area, and I know like other ones that I know, people who I know, great producers like Rollo, who did Faithless, and Dido, he doesn't care how people, he's a bit spectrumy, he doesn't really care how people feel emotionally. He's just like, he's quite blunt, but he knows what he thinks, and he's like, this is good, this is not good. And he's like, just really, really like so clear about it. It's your courage of your convictions that makes a great finished product. Just really trust yourself. And he's like, he could be really mean about it. Like I remember we were doing my solo album, which we never released in the end. I released it recently on Spotify. It's called Yin. But we did a certain track, and I was going, but Rollo, it doesn't sound cool. And he looked at me and he went, Jamie, you will never be cool. And even started getting other people from the other studios to come in. Ibby, come in here. Look at Jamie. Will he ever be cool? No. Like he was like, totally. But he was so.
Thanks, then.
Yeah, but it was like,
not working.
Just go with what is,
Really there was a couple of things when I'd done 2 of your courses and I loved them both. And but like with everything I do or everything I read, there's a few ideas I take away which I think, fucking hell, they really stick with me. And one was something that me and Tony was talking about the other day, which is that idea of kind of blind, deaf butlers around, want to bring you everything you want, but you can't tell them you've got to shut them.
Few people have been posting that recently.
And the other one, it's a great
take action.
For me, it was just like perfect articulation of what I'd known. Me and Tony made a feature film years ago, and it was like, and we got in contact with each other because of that feature film. And it was a case where I decided to make a feature film and said, I'm just going to make it. So like, I sort of greenlit it myself, even though I had no idea how I was going to do it. Yeah. I got on a train and there was a mutual friend of ours and he said, what are you doing? I said, I've just decided to make a feature film. And he said, Tony's just got a studio in his house. And I was like, oh, there we go. It was like,
that's how it works. Take action.
Happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was 2 things. What was the other thing you wanted to say?
So the other one, which has proved really, really useful to me, and the interesting thing about you is I don't even know if you say this at every workshop because you go to freestyle so much of it, is it was the bit around the real important part of the meeting is going to be done at the end.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if you wanted to give a sort of example of that.
Yeah, I'll give you a million examples. Every single time I've got the money for one of my projects, I was in a meeting for something else. I've never, not once got the money from the meeting that I was supposed to get. I've never gone into a meeting with the intention of getting something and got that thing. It's always been a little conversation at the end. There's a magical portal that happens at the end of a meeting when you've finished talking about what you came to talk about, but you haven't left yet. And you notice a picture on their desk of, oh, we've been to there, and or, oh, my sister, or you know what I mean? Happened with the example I always use this is like Annie Lennox loved the first One Giant Leap and asked me to direct her videos for her Bear album. So it was such a like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm going to fucking work with Annie Lennox, you know, one of my all-time favorite. So I hung out with her quite a lot and came up with these ideas for the videos. And then I had to go and meet her manager, this guy called Simon Fuller. I didn't know that he was a massive entertainment mogul and did the Spice Girls and X Factor and Pop Idol and all those things. I just thought he was her manager. I hadn't done any due diligence, showed up at his meeting. It turned out they weren't going to do the videos after all because she'd fallen out with the American record company and the whole thing got cancelled. And I was like, oh, fuck, shame. The one time I get asked to do Annie Lennox's videos, it's not going to happen. And then right at the end of the meeting, we got talking about One Giant Leap. And I was like, he goes, what are you doing with the next One Giant Leap? And I was like, how do you know about One Giant Leap? One Giant Leap is world music and spirituality. You're the Spice Girls. How do you even know it? He goes, oh, I listen to it in my house in France all the time. I love that record. I said, oh, God. And I wasn't in pitching. I was just like, oh, we don't want another record company. It's a bank with the worst interest rate in the world. We just want to meet someone, their money, our genius, split it 50-50, you know, make it collaborative. And he goes, yeah, that sounds it. He goes, look at that guy through the glass. That's my head of blah, blah, blah. Show him your numbers. You know, next day they gave us $3 million.
Oh. Yeah, there you go.
I was just passionately telling him what I was up for, you know what I mean?
There's something there which reminded me of a conversation that me and Tony were having just before you came on, which was around what is creativity, like the kind of link between creativity and spirituality. Because I think there's often nowadays there seems to be a thing of like creativity is almost like something that you can learn and you can go through things and do this to be more creative, blah, blah, blah. And I know you're a very spiritual guy, I'm a very spiritual guy. Where do you see as the link between creativity and spiritual? Is it a mental thing, or is it a purely spiritual thing, or is it where the two meet?
Okay, it's a good one to finish off with. So like the way I teach my stuff is based on the Taoist yin yang sign, that all of us have a yang side of us where we do stuff, we make decisions, we use our will, we control the world, get it how we want, which is how we've all been taught to live. But there's another whole half of us, which is the yin side, which is receptive, which is a great idea pops into your head. You don't generate an idea, it just arrives. And that's the receptive, listening, curious part, the yin part that no one's really taught to use. But it's where all the genius comes from. So for me, creativity comes from, starts with the yin, where you go, oh, yeah, and that's how spirit comes in. That's like when you're praying or when you're being spiritual, it's not about talking to God and doing something. It's about shutting up for a minute and letting the good vibes come in, emptying and letting something bigger fill you. That's yin. So if you just want to do something creative, if you just go quite quiet, when you write a song, you listen for a song. You don't think up a song. You don't go, I will play G, now I will play D. You just kind of twiddle around and you go, no, and you go, la, 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 oh, that sounds good. But it sounded good. You kind of heard it. And then you write it down with your yang. But you start with the yin. So the creativity is like feeling into your feelings of what feels exciting, of what, not thinking about what feels exciting, but just feeling that feeling of your friendship together, you two, for example, what you enjoy laughing about, what moves you, what makes you feel emotional, or what makes you feel like, well, this is what life's about, you know, those kinds of conversations. And when you talk about what life's really about, like that's how I met Duncan from One Giant Leap. He came to stay in my house. My lodger lent him his room. And we were just chatting about what was important to us in music, you know. And then it was like, wouldn't it be great if all the world music artists, their albums didn't sound so shite? Why are their albums so rubbish when their actual singing and their playing is so good? We thought that's important. The world should hear how good Baba Maal in Senegal is, or Asha Bosley in India. They should hear how good they are. We kind of was important. Wow, wouldn't it be great to make some music where you could really fucking hear how good these people are? And that's how One Giant Leap was born. was it felt important and like inspiring to us. So like when you get into conversations about what's important and inspiring and moving to you, ideas go, you know what, someone should let's do this. You know, it's like that yin of listening to each other and being curious about what's important to you will spawn a good idea. And then you've got that excitement, that juice to go and take yang actions in the world, get the hammer, get the wood, get the nails and build it. But it all begins, first of all, with listening to each other and what's important to us, what turns us on, what moves us, what makes us feel human, what makes us feel alive. You know, it's aliveness, which is the petrol that gets the creativity going.
Great. Well, listen, we've been trying to get together for a while. We've ended up doing it like this, but let's definitely get in contact. And when we're on the other side of all this, it's great to
And if you or any of your gang want a refresher, on this Saturday, which is probably too soon, on the 10th, I'm doing efficient activism for change makers, which is this kind of stuff, but if you want to make change in the world. And then the next Saturday, the 17th of October, I'm doing What About You? Bring Your Dream Project into the World, which is all the 30 years of my experience of all the things I've been talking about today and more on Saturday week. So if you guys like to come as a refresher, you're very, very welcome. Or if any of your gang want to come, just come to jamiecatto.com and get a ticket. It's really cheap. And if it's too expensive, come anyway.
I'll stick all of that in the notes for this as well, so everyone knows where to go.
Yeah. Anytime you want any input, just hit me up. It's lovely to be a part of it.
Jamie, that was fantastic. That was I did a lot of listening there, but covered everything that I was thinking about. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, guys.
Cheers.
Peace, love, and
take care. Peace. All the best. Was I supposed to record that?
Oh.